compass without a north is a soul without a country. In Stalin's empire, exile had no destination, only direction, away. Ivan Denisovich Shukhov, bricklayer, soldier, was arrested for suspicion of betrayal. Article 58, they said. He asked for his charge. They gave him 25 years. Welcome to the punishment block. 2 meters wide, 1 meter high. They called it a Chudo Camera, miracle box, because after 3 days inside, surviving was a miracle. He confessed to nothing, but they wrote his confession anyway. The candle flickered, and so did his name. Erased, rewritten, filed into silence. The Gulag, a world of fences and frost. Wooden barracks splintered by wind, rows of chimneys coughing black smoke, guards and watchtowers, rifles cradled like toys, and inside, men, thousands, packed like firewood in rotting huts. Before the frost claimed his name, he had another life. Summer of 1941, Ivan was a mason, nimble hands, steady eyes. His son played near scaffolding, while his wife brought lunch wrapped in linen. Then came war. He was enlisted in the Red Army. He fought on the front lines during the Great Patriotic War, wounded twice, decorated once. In 1945, as the war drew to a close, he was captured by the Germans. He survived in a POW camp and eventually returned to Soviet lines. But upon returning home, he was immediately arrested by the NKVD. Soviet intelligence labeled him suspect for having been briefly captured by the enemy. Suspicion was enough. Now, in the camp, light slams into his face as the cell opens. He is dragged out, half mad, assigned a number carved on his shoulder, and was handed a uniform, herded through a wire gate into the machinery of exile. The Gulag spanned 478 camp complexes, sometimes separated by hundreds of kilometers, but governed under a single administrative zone. These complexes formed what survivors often described as an archipelago, a prison system so vast and fragmented, it stretched like invisible islands across a continent. The system encompassed over 30,000 detention sites, camps, colonies, and settlements strategically spread across the Soviet Union. It stretched from the forests of European Russia, where camps near Moscow and Leningrad focused on industry and rail work, to the frostbitten coal pits of Vorkuta above the Arctic Circle, where temperatures dropped below minus 40 degrees Celsius and escape was impossible. Eastward, through the dense Siberian taiga, lay thousands of camps engaged in logging, mining, and laying railroads, exploiting the immense natural wealth buried in frozen soil. Further still, in the Far East near the Pacific coast, prisoners were forced to mine, fish, and build port infrastructure under near unreachable conditions. In the south, the steppes of Kazakhstan held agricultural complexes like Karlag, where inmates toil in salt-scarred fields and grain farms. These locations were not chosen at random. Each one was calculated, placed where resources were rich, terrain was brutal, and escape would mean certain death. The camps turned the empire itself into a prison, embedding forced labor into the bones of Soviet expansion. From the western borders near Eastern Europe to the eastern edge of the Pacific, nearly every inch of Soviet territory bore the footprint of barbed wire and forced work, ensuring that the Gulag was not just a system of camps, but a geographical organ of the Soviet state. Step past the wire, and the Gulag becomes flesh, a world of zones, each built to break something human. It was early morning, no alarm, just the rustle of bodies shifting on bunks stacked 3 high. Ivan sat up slowly, on the top tier, clutching the thin wool of his blanket. Below him, men coughed into their hands and slipped into threadbare jackets. 4 men in Barrack 9 would come to shape his days. Artyom had once been a literature teacher in Leningrad, imprisoned for owning banned Western books. Pavel, a former priest, now whispered only to God. Gennady was always listening, always watching. Everyone knew he reported to the guards. Nikolai, a former party man, was sentenced for questioning the fairness of rations. The morning whistle cut through the dark. It was 4:30 a.m., though no one checked the time. The whistle never lied. Ivan moved carefully, not to wake the man sleeping inches below. The cold bit at his skin as soon as the blanket slipped away. There was no fire, no insulation, only the breath of 50 men clouding the air with fog. 10 minutes later, they were marching. The foreman said nothing, just pointed. Ivan picked up a shovel with a cracked handle and joined the others. The task was the same, build more barracks. He chipped at the frozen ground with a pickaxe, then hauled the stiff earth away by hand. Every hour, the guards passed through to check progress. The quotas had to be met. By dusk, he had laid a few dozen bricks. He returned the tool and joined the slow shuffle back to Barrack 9. That night, he lay flat on his plank, the coal bleeding through the wood. He closed his eyes and tried to hold on to an image. His wife kneading dough, his son laughing down a hallway he hadn't walked in years. He held onto it for a moment longer. Then the cold returned, and the camp swallowed him again. There were still slivers of mercy left in the system, though they came quiet and rare. In early 1948, his second winter, the worksite was behind schedule. 2 men had fallen sick. 1 had disappeared, dragged away for failing to meet his quota. Tension was rising. The guards watched everything. Ivan noticed a boy struggling near the far end of the wall, mortar sliding off his trowel in uneven clumps. His bricks were crooked, misaligned. A guard glanced over but said nothing. Not yet. Mistakes didn't go unnoticed for long. Ivan crossed the site without a word, picked up a spare trowel from the snow, and began working beside him. He didn't ask the boy's name. By midday, the wall was holding. That night, Ivan returned to the barrack and found Artyom curled on his bunk, trembling beneath a blanket, too thin for the worsening cold. Ivan reached into his coat, tore out a strip of lining, and quietly tucked it into Artyom's. Artyom barely stirred. Ivan went back to his bed, pulled the now thinner coat around himself, and stared at the ceiling. He imagined walls, straight walls, warm mortar, finished homes. That vision was enough to keep his mind steady. In the winter of 1951, news broke. Someone had escaped. The camp locked down immediately. For 3 days, no one left the barracks except for interrogations. Ivan had seen the man go, but he stayed quiet. On the 3rd night, the body was found in a shallow ditch, frozen stiff. That evening, the guards entered Barrack 9. The guard stepped inside. His boots were heavy, his eyes unreadable. He said nothing. His gaze locked on Ivan. The first strike landed across the jaw, snapping Ivan's head sideways. The second hit his ribs. Then came a boot to the stomach. Around him, other men fell. Groans, dull thuds. Ivan remained silent. By 1952, Ivan's body had changed. His back had started to stoop. His hair was gray. That same year, Artyom collapsed during roll call. Ivan looked back and saw him lying in the snow near the worksite, face down and motionless. The guards ignored him. That night, Ivan sat beside him. He wrapped his coat around Artyom's body and waited as the man's breath grew thinner. By morning, he was gone. Ivan buried him behind the compound near the latrine trench. There was no marker, no ceremony, just a quiet moment where Ivan whispered, "Forgive me." It was the first time he had cried in years, and in that moment, he wondered if his own end would look the same. Buried without a name, forgotten behind the barracks, erased by the snow. The final winter of his sentence brought whispers. Stalin was sick. Then Stalin died, March 1953. Outside the barracks, the Soviet Union held its breath. Black banners hung over Moscow. Radios repeated a single phrase. Factories paused. In the camps, something shifted, something unseen. Not freedom, not yet. But the weight of the air had changed. Some guards softened, others grew violent. Rumors flew, sentences under review, names were called. Men vanished, released, relocated. No one knew, no one asked. Ivan said nothing. He kept working. Until one morning, his number was called. Administrative office, no explanation. Weeks passed, then another summons. Pack your things, you're free to go. No handshakes, no goodbyes. Just a coat, a sack, and silence. He stepped beyond the gate with the same quiet he wore inside. He boarded a train, slept sitting up. For the first time in years, he let himself imagine something gentle. A warm meal, a familiar voice, a corner of the world where he could simply exist. When he arrived at the village, it was late afternoon. The roads hadn't changed, but they felt smaller. New fences, new paint. Children played in the snow. Somewhere, a dog barked at nothing. He walked the final stretch on foot, stone by stone, the path he had once laid with his own hands. He walked up the path to the house. The gate creaked, the birch tree still leaned. He stepped closer to the window and looked inside. She was there, his wife, her arms around another man. They weren't just close, they were familiar. He saw it in the way she leaned into him, the quiet smile, the hand resting gently on the man's shoulder. She had moved on, her life had moved on, and he was no longer in it. Ivan stood frozen, not angry, just hollow. Then, from the side of the house, a boy, who happens to be his son, ran into the yard, chasing a ball. Ivan stepped forward. The child looked up. Ivan dropped to his knees, arms outstretched. The boy froze and did not recognize Ivan, then turned. He ran back toward the house, shouting for his mother. No papa, just fear. Ivan stood there, arms still open. 7 years. 7 winters of blood, bone, and silence. The Gulag didn't kill him. It carved him, stripped him down to nothing but one belief, that this pain would end with love, that the world he left behind still remembered his name. But the world moved on. His wife in another man's arms, his son looking at him like a stranger in the street. No fury, no betrayal, just absence, as if he never existed. In that moment, something breaks. Not outside, inside. It's not fire, it's not ruin, it's emptiness. a silence so loud it splits reality. And when it all falls still, when the dust settles, nothing has changed except him. He survived hell to find that peace is a lie, and the real sentence begins now. He runs away, not to escape, but to leave behind the noise of what his life used to be. The world behind him is loud, cruel, alive, too alive, and he no longer belongs to it. He finds a place where no one goes, no voices, no memories, just wind and dirt and time. And there, he begins to build. He doesn't draw plans, doesn't stop to rest. His hands move with purpose, because once they built for others, now they build for him. Brick by brick, he raises something no one else will understand. A wall, but also a line, a grave, a prayer. Days pass, nights pass. His hands crack and bleed, but still he builds. When the final brick is laid, he steps back, not to admire it, but to mark it. He takes a chisel, finds the center, and carves the only truth the world will ever hear from him. Stalin built this wall with my hands. He looks at the words, then walks to the other side, and he does not return. No one sees where he goes, no one follows, no one ever will. He does not cry, he does not smile, he simply sits, finally, in a place the past cannot reach. From 1929 to 1953, the Gulag became an empire of suffering, imprisoning over 18 million under Soviet rule. Ivan's story is fictional, yet every detail was lived by countless others. The knock at night, the endless labor, the silence that followed. Most left no trial, no grave, no name, only fading footsteps in snow and files buried in archives. In telling his story, we give voice to those history tried to forget.